Boah, ey, ich bin mal gespannt, wie viele Podcasts man hier so finden kann und ob die alle so fucking lang sind. So, Eric, tu mal was. Ich finde diesen Turmbeutel einfach so geil. Licht?
No DedSec registration detected. Identify yourself, or I'll seal the exits, hack your optic, and read you every drunken email you ever wrote until you starve.
What a joker. I never write drunk. Also, Sabine sent me.
Sabine's alive? Well, that's one piece of good news. I'm Bagley, DedSec's definitely not stolen, highly advanced AI assistant, and it seems I've been out of commission for a few months. Anyway, why don't you go connect me to the DedSec network so I can become more powerful than you could possibly imagine? I mean, catch up on what I missed.
Okay. Ja, gleich. Wir haben noch eins gefunden. Boah, ey, die sind alle so lang. Aber ich finde es gerade echt mega interessant, mir die Sachen mal anzuhören.
This is London Calling. You're listening to Buccaneer, your pirate podcast source for what they don't want you to know. I'm Tash, and this time we're giving a special shout out from us to the boys and girls at the Signal and Intelligence Response Service, better known as SIRS. Why not? They're going to be listening anyway. They're listening to everything. They probably know that you're listening to this show right now, but don't worry. We're not going to say anything bad about a massive, unaccountable spy organization that uses its powers to stifle dissent and shut down free speech. Instead, we're going to look at how SIRS became so powerful. And as usual, we'll keep everyone's names and locations secret, so SIRS doesn't come looking for them. Charles is an expert in the dark arts of surveillance who worked to set up democratic media in post-communist states. How did it go so wrong in Britain?
You know, we're looking at all the wrong things when we look at Britain's crisis. There's a lot of concentration on data and how that's been used and manipulated. And what we haven't looked at is the power structures and the profit that lies behind this. For example, if we examine what actually happened, you know, there's a company that's really very interested in selling passports and making it easy to provide visas for investment and so on. And historically, throughout the world, they've been working with this big data manipulation company in order to overthrow governments, and then suddenly all the chickens came home to roost. Nobody could find any receipts for what was paid for. Nobody could figure out how things were done, but everybody had a feeling that something really stunk, and they couldn't figure it out. And yet it was standing there in their face the whole time. There's a couple of different ways that we got where it is that we are. I mean, one, you have a lot of smaller organizations, smaller power groups, companies as well, who are bending things just a little. Oh, we'll compromise a little bit, we'll bend the rules a little bit, and try to achieve what it is that we hope to achieve that's good for us. And if you add all of that up, what you end up with is a big wall moving in a big way, from a lot of little buttons being pushed. But also there's this other thing that's going on here, is the gathering of data and the analysis of data has authoritarianism contained within its DNA. It is by its nature a tool for authoritarianism, and it has been used in that way.
How does big data look into our lives? James covered it for the pre-crisis press.
Das hört sich jetzt so ein bisschen Assassin's Creed wirklich an.
Data held by the state into what are called social credit systems. This is where every aspect of your behavior is monitored and totted up by a central system to sort of score you as a person, a bit like a credit card, but predicated on all of your behavior rather than just the money you're spending. And this can have profound impact. We're starting to see systems emerge which will punish you and stop you from doing things in society based on your behaviors. And this can be as trivial as if you jaywalk, if you cross the road in the wrong place, you might lose points. If you do some community activities or help your neighbours, you might earn points. And then this can be used to sort of evaluate you as a person. And this could mean, for example, the travel privileges, being able to travel first class, or being denied from travelling first class to not being allowed to travel at all. These systems are very real and very possible because of all of the data that is now held on us.
Ian was a veteran political writer and podcaster back in the days of pre-crisis Britain.
Is the world we're living in now fascist? Well, this is what fascism is. It is the complete and total control of the individual. The desire to basically say to the individual, nothing in your life matters. On an individual basis, you are now part of the whole, part of the nation, and the only meaning that you will find in your life is to become part of the nation. What is a nation? A nation doesn't mean anything, right? The nation is basically just encapsulated by the leader that takes over, that claims that he, has this sort of access to the soul of the country, to the soul of the people. He never does. It's just a myth. But that's what they go for. And on that basis, they take the right to control every aspect of your life, from who you talk to where you eat, to where you go to hang out with your friends. And what we're seeing now is a contemporary iteration of this process where you get corporations and the state operating in tandem, basically molded into one another. But that isn't that rare. I mean, you saw exactly the same thing in Nazi Germany. You look at the concentration camps that operated in Nazi Germany, there were private companies in those camps making use of that slave labor. Fascism often works with corporations, and it's doing the same now. That's the way in which they track what you do. That's the way in which they track who you talk to. They operate as each other's proxies.
So if your ears are burning and you think someone might be watching you, you're probably right. They're watching all of us. I'm Tash, and you've been listening to Buccaneer. Keep listening, keep sharing the show, and keep it encrypted. They're watching us, but we're watching them too.
Holy shit, wann ist das denn gerade eskaliert? Ja, das ist so eigentlich wie Nazi-Deutschland. Was? Fuck me. Was haben wir denn hier? Oh, noch ein Podcast. Wow.
Coming up today on The Upload, we're talking about Skye Larson, the enigmatic founder of Broker Tech. Everyone knows her name, but no one knows too much about her. And we only really see her these days as a hologram. She was pretty young when she launched Broker Tech, the company that is best known for introducing Bagley to the world. Nowadays, it's hard to remember a world before Bagley.
And I think that what Skye Larson's done with Bagley is absolutely incredible. Bagley is the most advanced, significant AI of our time, and it's really blown all the other AIs that were created out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really imagine the optic without it. But what do you know about Skye Larson herself?
Not a lot, other than that she's actually pretty
crash.
Incredible. I've followed her work for a long time, and she's always been a pretty private person. I know that she supposedly grew up in the countryside, but there isn't actually that much more we know about her other than this tech that she's put out into the world.
I've always found it a bit creepy that she's so obsessed with this idea of transhumanism.
Why wouldn't you be? When you've got a mind as amazing as Skye's, why wouldn't you want to take what you've got and actually augment it by working with technology, by improving your physical self, changing your body and the world around you, implementing more technology to extend your life and really sort of extend human capabilities?
You sound pretty much in love with Skye Larson, I have to say.
I can't comment on that, but I am a big fan of her work. She's been one of these people that has transformed the world around us, and just watching how her mind works from afar is pretty incredible, because some of what the technology she's introduced has changed how we all live our lives, and Bagley has been this really incredible assistance to humanity as a whole. Did I ever tell you that I actually interviewed Skye Larson once?
Really? I thought she never spoke to the media or anything.
So this was a long time ago, back in the day when she was a little bit more accessible, and she was one of these people that just had an amazing presence. You were inspired by her very being, and she was just incredibly talented and knowledgeable, and one of possibly the best living people that I've ever met.
I'm not sure you're being too objective there. I mean, I imagine she's not very likable as a person.
She obviously despises humanity in some way. I think she believes that becoming data is preferable to being human. She's one of these people who is extremely methodical in everything that she does, and she does everything to perfection and really tries to change the world around her and make it a better place for us to live in.
If you say so.
Ich weiß nicht, ob das so erstrebenswert ist, mehr als Daten zu leben, als Mensch. Was haben wir hier? Oh, eine Diskette. Das Spiel New Skies wurde 1989 von der Londoner Firma BritPlay Software veröffentlicht. Das Ego Arcade Adventure erzählt die Geschichte eines Soldaten, der an einem Angriff der Menschen auf den Mars teilnimmt. Spieler müssen eine Widerstandsbewegung zerschlagen, indem sie geheime Alien-Waffenlager, Propagandamaterial und Mars-Kommandanten vernichten. Das Spiel war ein gewaltiger Flop. Hätte ich jetzt nicht gedacht. In der Folge wurde BritPlay Software aufgelöst und der ehemalige Geschäftsführer startete eine neue Karriere im Geheimdienst der Regierung, wo man seinen Ideen wesentlich mehr Gehör schenkte. Puh, okay.
It's mine now.
Lol, wir haben eine Diskette gefunden. Nice. Oh, guck mal, was Neues. Ein Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to The Upload. In this episode, we're talking about CTOS 3.0, the city operating system that's now powering all of London. For those of you who need reminding, as if anyone does at this point, CTOS was first used in Chicago in 2014 and then San Francisco in 2017 before coming here to London. And every time it's been rolled out, it's been pretty much an unmitigated disaster.
For those of you who are listening who are lucky enough not to be here in London's chaotic scenes, it's worth remembering that the telecoms tower is now owned by Bloom. The tower looms over northwest London. It's always been a communications hub, acting as part of the UK's television and communications network, although there's been some secrecy around its use, and now that Bloom owns it, it's only even more secret.
Yeah, now everything that's part of Bloom's city surveillance operation is run through the telecoms tower. And I have to say, it looks completely ridiculous. It's got that silly crown thing at the top and all the blue light.
What's that even about? What does it do? I don't see that there's any purpose to that at all.
It's a blight on the skyline, if you ask me. And it's become the main point of control for millions of people. The System Network and Bagley are both operated and streamed from there too.
And don't forget about the self-driving cars too.
I always thought they were just running on their own.
No, CTOS is the big control system behind the cars. There was a point back in the earliest days of self-driving car technology that they operated by themselves. They used to use a series of sensors to see the world around them. Radar, for instance, would look far off into the distance, while LiDAR would detect objects nearby. And while these cars still use some of this technology, Bloom CTOS and its detailed maps and data that it has on London really makes Bloom be able to take control of it. And CTOS can take control of your car if you're parked incorrectly. It's no surprise that it was made mandatory to have a self-driving car.
The system is so bad though, it's so annoying. Whenever I try to use one of the shareable self-driving cars, I always find myself stuck in traffic jams or roadblocks. Not to mention the accidents. I've heard so many stories of cars shunting into the back of others. I think they're worse than human drivers sometimes.
The technology was meant to make things better, but Bloom has made it so bad that it just makes London even more chaotic than it was before. I'm giving up on the cars. I'm only using the bikes, which are not self-driving at the moment at least. And don't even get me started on the data. Everything that Bloom sees from your movements around the city and the self-driving cars is collected and feeds back into its big information control system.
Oh, not you and Bloom and privacy again. You're a broken record.
Not as broken as our city's cars.
Okay. Okay. Das erklärt aber den Unfall von gerade. Ich habe mich nämlich gerade wirklich gefragt, so, das sind doch autonom fahrende Autos. Warum bauen die einen Unfall?
That's it. I'm reconnected to the network. Downloading our database, news archives, and... Oh no. Terrorist group DedSec responsible for deadly bombings in London. Dalton Wolf dead? I leave you people alone for a second and you immediately cock it all up.
But the whole world thinks DedSec did the bombings. So who are the real bad guys?
There's a gap in my memory after Dalton... Well, let's be honest, after I disarmed the bomb at Parliament. I'm missing information about what happened after I was taken offline. But from what I can infer, an unknown hacker group identified only as Zero Day was involved. I believe this Zero Day staged the attacks and framed DedSec for their dirty work. Come to my terminal. Sabine is requesting a video call.
Ah, lol, ich habe jetzt eine Schweinemaske. Okay, das ist das Versteck. Oh, viel gesehen haben. Oh Gott, wir sind gerade bestimmt 20 Minuten hier lang gelaufen und wir haben nicht viel gesehen. Ich will mal eben die Sachen, die wir jetzt eingesammelt haben, einmal abtickern. Das haben wir auch gehört. Missionen. Okay, wir müssen Sabine irgendwie kontaktieren. Aber das mit den Audio-Podcasts finde ich ganz geil. Da muss man selber nicht so viel lesen. Achso, das ist der Datenspeicher. Okay. Das sieht schon nice aus. Ich finde es ziemlich cool. Warte. Warte mal, erstmal will ich ganz kurz gucken, was hier hinten noch ist. Soll ich hier schon?
Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Upload. We're talking about the Optic and how it's changed our lives. Now, as you remember, Bloom announced a new version of the Optic at the recent Tone conference, but we haven't heard too much about that since due to the dramatic events there. Let's cast our minds back and consider the technology. I mean, the Optic changed everything. It lets you see things in AR. You no longer need a smartphone. You just have the small implant that sends signals to your optic nerve and lets you see your emails, take calls, and browse the internet directly as if the screen was in front of your eyes. Instead of having to carry around a phone, you've just got the small handheld unit. So much lighter and so much more convenient. It's great.
Vicky, you sound like you absolutely love the Optic. Do you actually think that it's made our lives any better?
I mean, sure, it's definitely made things a lot easier. It's so simple to call someone now. All you have to do is choose who you want to chat to, and they're there, ready to talk.
So viel
And browsing
Englisch.
the web is so much easier. I
Das
remember
hat
when
das
you
jetzt
used to have
gerade
to
so
sit
an
down
sich,
at a
ja.
computer with an actual keyboard and mouse and type everything out.
Aber
And my
ansonsten wäre
favorite
es
feature
insgesamt
is
einfach
public
zu viel
transport. With the
Text.
Optic, you can just walk straight onto the tube. It even acts as a passport. No longer do I have to dig around and try and find my old paper passport just to travel somewhere. Also, I thought that Optic's marketing strategy, making it free for people, was a stroke of genius.
Genius. Bloom was really calculated when it was doing that. It was pushing this draconian device on us at all. Sure, everybody flocked to it. There was free Wi-Fi.
Nee,
and
es gibt
phone
eine deutsche
plans.
Synchro.
That definitely helped, but it wasn't a case of this is a product that you need in your life.
Why do you hate it so much?
It's just the worst because you had to give up your privacy expectations and accept surveillance. It was almost like the government and Bloom didn't even need to make the Optic mandatory. Making it mandatory was only to get the last holdouts across the line. If free data didn't convince you, fines
Also
and
ja, es
arrests
gibt eine
from the
deutsche
state
Synchro.
for
Ich
not
spiele
having the
sie
Optic
aber
would
nicht.
pretty much be enough.
I mean, what do you mean by privacy problems? No one really talks about that anymore.
They don't talk about it because we don't have any choice when it comes to the Optic. Yes, it's convenient and mandatory, but everybody's forgotten what it really means. Here, you've got a whole company owning basically all the data about your life. Bloom can see everything that you can see. Nothing is private anymore. There are so many times when I don't want anyone to have a clue about where I am, who I'm chatting with, what I'm doing. It's not even dodgy stuff, but I just don't want anybody to blackmail me with this in the future by hacking it. And because of Bloom's contracts with the government, it isn't just Bloom that can see everything I do, it's the government. The UK as a state has become a complete surveillance paradise.
I think you're painting a bit of a bleak picture. It's not all that bad.
No, you're completely wrong on this. I don't want everybody tracking me wherever I'm going around London.
Well, in that case, you might be interested in some rumours I heard.
Ja, ja.
Did you hear that some DedSec hackers have found a way to bypass the Optic's connection with Bloom?
Are they actually making it better or usable or actually friendly for anybody?
Well, word on the street is that they've been able to create an encrypted signal, which means that your world might have a chance of becoming a bit more private again, so you could go back and enjoy all the great things about Optic without that fear of surveillance.
With the Optic, privacy's dead.
Und ich war so stolz